Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Ilse Zamarripa and this is The World Space. Today we have an amazing guest called Stephen Clee. He has worked in video games, TV, and he has done an outstanding work, sometimes animating and sometimes supervising movies like Okja, Maze Runner, Thor, Fantastic Beasts 2, just to name a few. He used to work in Method Studios and now he is an animation supervisor at Weta. Hi Steve, how's it going? Thank you so much for being in the show today.
Hey Elsa, thank you for having me.
The pleasure is ours. So as an animator, we develop a skill set and we kind of get married to the way it functions. We have our workflow and we direct ourselves along the way. How was it like for you to jump from animator to supervisor? I think it's a huge step and it can be truly challenging, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It has its own challenges. I think with being a supervisor, you're more focused on the whole, and as an animator, you're working on making your pieces of it as good as possible. It's a very different skill set, I think. I think it's more time management, not just for yourself, but for the entire project. It's scheduling. It's a lot more personal relations. You know, you're working with a lot of different personalities and strengths and skill sets, and which is, I think, the exciting part of it. I think you're working with people that you can learn a lot from. I think as an animator, sometimes you can get into your own little bubble, and as a supervisor, you definitely aren't in your own bubble. You have to be out and about doing. Going to people's desks and going through dailies and just making sure that everybody's on track, and it's your responsibility to make sure that everything keeps flowing.
You were telling me that Bong Joonho, who recently directed Parasite and worked with you in Okja, is a very out-of-the-box thinker, and you really enjoyed working alongside him. In your opinion, since you've worked with him, what are the things he does differently? What are the keys to being a great director like he is?
Yeah, he does a lot of things differently. I think he's an incredibly skilled filmmaker. He storyboards all of his shots beforehand, which, coming from a 2D background myself, it was really, really nice to know exactly what was in his mind every day we showed up on set. He really thinks things through, and he's just got such a good sense of what's in his edit. When we were on set, when we were shooting different shots, when he yelled cut, that's when he wanted to cut in his edit. It changed very little, and it was really remarkable to see just how cohesive the movie was from beginning to end. I mean, what it was on paper when he was storyboarding it to what it eventually ended up being when it was on the screen. It was amazing how clear everything was and how little it changed, because he had such a clear vision in his head, and that's pretty remarkable to have somebody who can keep all of that in their mind and stick to their own vision like that. Yeah, it was great. He's amazing.
Wow, that is amazing. And very few animators can tell that they were part of the shooting of a film. Planning Okja must have been super complicated, because we're talking about a huge animal interacting with the environment and the characters. Obviously, in particular with the girl, in a very personal and meaningful way. But you had a real person in a set and then a full CG creature.
Yeah, on that show in particular, it was really important to us that we sold that relationship between Mija and Okja.
The Puppeteer, Steve Clee, is my animation director on this project, and it was very important for me to have him on the other side of the camera. Steve has the best idea of how Okja moves, her cadence, her gait, certain frequencies that will work later in post.
It was something that we worked very, very hard on. I think in our pre-production planning for that, the two leads, Sachin and Jai, and myself, we did a lot of tech viz and a lot of planning for the shots and broke down the script and knew what we needed to plan for when we were on set. And with the visual effects supervisor, Eric DeBoer, we did so much planning beforehand and while we were on set, and just making sure that relationship really, really came across on camera before we actually got anywhere near a computer. And that's, I think, really important. Having something tangible on set for her to emote against and for her to relate to really sold that performance, and I think that's why the movie was a success. I think it worked pretty well.
You got to actually wear the suit of Okja, pretending you were Okja, so you were basically the character. Please tell us about this crazy and beautiful experience.
Yeah, I was the puppeteer on set as well as the animation supervisor for that project. It was something that was a bit unique for that project. I would feel really lucky that I was able to do that. It helped a lot though, I think, because the relationship that the visual effects supervisor and I had, we had a vernacular and a shorthand that we used at work. So it was really nice to be able to essentially give animation notes on the fly while we were there. A lot of the planning for that came, like I said before, with my leads and myself before the shoot, and planning all the different situations that we had in the script, and knowing what we needed to build puppets for, what the functionality of those puppets were. For example, with the shot where one of the characters is taking a selfie and lifting up her lip, we knew that part of the foam in the lip needed to be pretty malleable and have some weight to it and some heft, so he could really get in there and really move it around, and that would correspond to what we were doing in CG later.
That is amazing. So what have you learned from the way you were planning Okja? How will that skill set help you in new movies?
Oh, it taught me a lot of things. I think being on set for 3 months really kind of gave me a quick crash course in what that life was like, and just how anything that we do on camera corresponds to what we're doing in CG later, and trying to get as much in camera as possible. I think you really sell the relationship, you sell the weight, I think you sell the performance, and it's not just eye lines, it's not just people acting towards tennis balls. In our case, we had so many puppets, people were actually able to look into Okja's eyes, and they had something tangible that they could touch. They had something that they could push against. They had, me behind it, kind of dictating that performance and knowing the limitations of our character and what she was capable of. So I think it also taught me a lot about how much pre-planning can really help in the post-process. I think the more time and the more energy you put in at the beginning of a project, it really pays dividends later when you're in the thick of it and actually in full-on production.
Now, in our career, we have to juggle between work, overtime, changing countries, and all that. I really admire you for having such a strong bond with your family. How have you dealt with these challenges and this hard work, everything at the same time?
Yeah, I think the short answer would be I've got a very supportive wife who picks up a lot of my slack. Really, depending on the project, it's every project's different. I've been very fortunate in that a lot of my recent projects haven't had a ton of overtime. But in the past, I think it's just setting your own limitations and letting work know how much you can do and what you're capable of at any given time. I've worked projects where I've been doing tons of overtime, and I've worked projects where I've taken a little bit of a step back. I mean, I think I've been in the very, very fortunate position where I've been able to supervise, sometimes lead, and then jump down to animation depending on the project and depending on the time and what's going on in my life. Your family is going to be around a lot longer than the project is, so I would say devote some time to your family.
New Zealand is super far away. How do you manage that? Is it complicated? Do you still have family in Vancouver that you have to go see? What do you think about living so far away?
I think in this day and age, it's made a lot easier by things like FaceTime and Skype and just Zoom and all of the different ways that you can communicate with people back home. So yeah, I was born and raised in Vancouver, and all my family, the vast majority is in Canada. But yeah, it's really easy to stay in contact with everybody, with my siblings and my wife's siblings, and just make sure that we keep in touch and that our kids keep in touch. It's really nice, and we've also had the good fortune of we've had some family come down and visit us down here, and I think it's exciting for them too.
Yeah, this is a very personal thing, but I believe it's quite inspirational from your story. Can you tell our viewers about the first time you applied to an animation school?
Yeah, of course. The first time I applied to animation school in college, I didn't get in. I applied to Capilano University way back in 2001, I guess. And when I graduated high school, and I didn't have a very good portfolio together, and they required a portfolio to get in. I didn't get in, and so I took a year off school. I was fortunate enough that I had a job, and I just worked at a restaurant. I took a bunch of art classes. I built up my portfolio, and I applied again the next year, and I got in, and was probably one of the worst artists in the class. I had some pretty amazing classmates, but I had 2 years with them, and I learned a lot from them. I would say don't give up. It's if at first you don't succeed, try again. I mean, it's cliche, but I'm proof that you can do it. It's not too scary. Just keep plugging away, and you'll get there for sure. It's worth it.
Yeah, the true challenge is to never give up, to always keep animating. You can be born with talent, but you actually have to work a lot to make it flourish. So I totally agree. Now, do you use any particular tools in Maya? Any particular things or tips to optimize your workflow that you could recommend?
Yeah, I use a couple different tools. I use Animbot quite a bit. I'm friends with Alan. We've worked together on a couple projects, and we were working together on Maze Runner when he was developing A-Tools, and we were kind of his beta testers. But Animbot's amazing. I use the arc tracker in that and the fake pivot the last couple weeks, and it's such a useful tool set. I use it all the time, so definitely use Animbot. Besides that, I try to keep it pretty simple, to be honest. The way that I animate is I try and break it down, and I try to work slowly through the body. I've been doing a lot of creature stuff in the past 5 years, and keeping it simple. I think, planning, using a lot of reference is something I recommend that you follow heavily, and as closely as possible. And even if you deviate from the reference, having the reference there definitely gives you a base that's legitimate. Working on creatures, it's definitely as much reference as possible, and keep it as simple as possible, and break down the body. There's a really good blog by Daniel Fotheringham. It's about quadruped workflow, and it's amazing. It was very similar to the way that I worked, and he has some tips and tricks in there that I recommend everybody read, especially if you're going to be doing some quadruped animation, because it's friggin' amazing. It's so good, and it's such a concise breakdown, and it shows you just step by step, and guarantee you'll be better at animating quadrupeds after you take a look at that blog.
Now, to end this interview, you have the best, funniest movie credit of all times. Would you please share it with the audience?
Yeah. One of my actor credits is Man Who Spanks Okja in JFK. I think out of the 300 shots or so that I'm behind a stuffy in that movie, there's one shot that's about, 70 frames long, that's at JFK Airport, and Eric DeBoer, who's the VFX soup, is at the front with a banana, and I'm behind Okja, and I give her a little shove and push her. So that's one of my favorite credits that I've got on IMDb. Yep.
Thank you for being such a wonderful guest. It was a true pleasure to have you here, Steve.
Thanks so much for having me on your show.
That was Stephen Clee, everybody. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up so I can know and I can continue making videos like this one. If you subscribe, I would appreciate it very much so you don't miss any videos. And hey, guess what? Trikingo is a site where you can download many different tools and tutorials, so make sure to check it out. I have a coupon where I get 20% discount in any purchase, and they make animation easier with tools that save you a lot of time. So make sure to check it out. And as Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it. So keep making art, you beautiful artist. Ciao.